Welcome to the Pardish channel. Today we explain Prophets Kings 1, Chapter 1 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Okay, let's really dive right into this, because what we have here in this chapter is an absolutely thrilling, high-stakes succession crisis for the throne of Israel. I mean, we're talking about a story full of intense political maneuvering, secret plots behind closed doors, and some massive, dramatic reversals, all centered around one really monumental question: who is actually going to rule after King David?
Here's exactly how we're going to break this down today. We'll start with the aging king's vulnerability, look at Adonijah claiming the throne, then Bathsheba and Nathan's intervention, Solomon being crowned king, Adonijah fleeing to the altar, and finally we'll wrap up with the key life lessons from chapter 1.
Section 1. The aging king's vulnerability.
Now, to really understand how this whole crisis kicks off, we first have to understand the power vacuum that's happening right at the top. King David, who we all know as this incredibly strong, great warrior, well, he's at the very end of his life here. Looking closely at verses 1 and 2, the text paints a pretty stark, honest picture of human frailty. It says, when King David was old and well advanced in years, he could not keep warm even when they put covers over him. Imagine that. The great king is shivering and bedridden. His servants see this intense physical vulnerability and they come up with a highly practical solution for the time. They suggest looking for a young virgin to attend the king, to basically take care of him and lie beside him, simply so that he might be able to keep warm.
And this illustrates exactly how they address the problem in verses 3 and 4. They search all throughout Israel and they end up finding a very beautiful young woman named Abishag, the Shunammite. Now, the text makes a very specific, deliberate point right here that we need to understand clearly for the plain meaning of the story. It tells us she became a companion to the king and waited on him, but the king had absolutely no intimate relations with her. Right? Her role is strictly 100% that of a caretaker for a frail elderly king. This perfectly sets the stage for everything that follows. The king is essentially incapacitated, he's stuck in bed, and the rest of the kingdom? Well, they're watching closely to see what happens next.
Section 2. Adonijah claims the throne.
You know, whenever a king is perceived as weak, ambitious people inevitably see an opportunity. And in verses 5 and 6, we meet exactly that kind of person, Adonijah. His mother was Haggith, and he looks at the situation and decides to just put himself forward. He boldly declares to anyone listening, "I will be king." So what does he do? He starts acting exactly like a king. He prepares these impressive chariots and horses and even gets 50 men to run ahead of him wherever he goes. Now, the text gives us two really crucial details about why he feels so confident doing this. First, he was very handsome and born next after Absalom, which gives him a seemingly strong claim just by birth order. But second, and this is huge, his father, David, had never once interfered with him. He never disciplined him or questioned him by asking, "Why do you behave as you do?" So what we're seeing here is unchecked ambition rapidly taking root.
As we move into verses 7 and 8, notice the deep, severe political division forming. Adonijah is ambitious, but he's not foolish. He knows he needs powerful friends to pull this off. So he confers with Joab, the commander of the army, and Abiathar the priest, and they agree to throw their support fully behind him. But he doesn't get everyone. Over on the other side, you have Zadok the priest, Benaiah the military leader, Nathan the prophet, and King David's own special guard. They absolutely do not join Adonijah. They are completely and totally loyal to David's other son, Solomon. So the kingdom is officially split right down the middle into two heavily armed rival camps.
So Adonijah makes his big public move in verses 9 and 10. He decides to hold a massive royal feast at the Stone of Zoheleth near En Rogel. He goes all out, sacrificing sheep, cattle, and fattened calves. He invites all his brothers, the rest of the king's sons, and all the royal officials of Judah. But notice who he very deliberately leaves off the guest list: Nathan the prophet, Benaiah the special guard, and, most importantly, his brother Solomon. So make no mistake, this isn't just a friendly dinner party. This is a highly calculated political coronation meant to sideline Solomon completely.
Section 3. Bathsheba and Nathan intervene.
Now, a fast-moving counterplot unfolds to stop this usurpation before it's completely locked in. In verses 11 through 14, Nathan the prophet realizes the immense danger and rushes straight to Bathsheba, who is Solomon's mother. He asks her, "Have you heard that Adonijah has become king without David even knowing?" He tells her point blank, "Your life and the life of your son Solomon are in immediate severe danger. If Adonijah takes the throne, they're finished." So Nathan lays out this brilliant, clever two-step strategy. Step 1. Bathsheba must go directly to King David and remind him of a sacred oath he made to make Solomon king. Step 2. While she is still speaking with him, Nathan will casually walk into the room and confirm everything she says to emphasize the extreme urgency of the situation.
Verses 15 through 21 describe Bathsheba executing this plan absolutely flawlessly. Imagine the scene. She goes into the aged king's private room, and the text specifically notes that Abishag the Shunammite is right there attending him. And Bathsheba bows low in respect. She urgently reminds David of his oath, really pressing him. You yourself swore, Solomon your son shall become king after me. Then she drops the bombshell. She reveals the shocking news that Adonijah is currently acting as king, throwing this massive feast right now with the top military and religious leaders, and has intentionally left Solomon out. The most crucial point she makes to David is that the eyes of all Israel are completely focused on him. They are waiting for him to officially name his successor, because if he doesn't, the literal second he passes away, she and Solomon will be treated as criminals and traitors. Right on cue, moving into verses 22 through 27, Nathan the prophet arrives. He bows with his face entirely to the ground, showing immense respect, and then he asks David a very piercing, deliberate question. Have you, my lord the king, declared that Adonijah shall be king after you? He vividly describes the feast that is happening at that exact moment, painting a picture of the guests eating, drinking, and shouting, "Long live King Adonijah." Nathan respectfully but very firmly asks if the king actually authorized this massive shift in power entirely behind the backs of his most loyal servants. It's a brilliant way to wake the king up to the reality of what's happening outside his bedroom doors. Section 4. Solomon is crowned king.
And this brings us right to the absolute climax of the chapter. King David finally wakes up to the severity of this crisis, and he realizes he must act, and he must act decisively right now. In verses 28 through 31, David calls Bathsheba back into his presence, and there is zero hesitation here. He takes a solemn oath, swearing by the Lord who delivered him out of every trouble, and says, "I will surely carry out today what I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel. Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne in my place." In response to this powerful, definitive promise, Bathsheba bows low with her face all the way to the ground in deep reverence and says, "May my lord King David live forever." Verses 32 through 35 show David suddenly springing to life, acting with incredibly rapid, almost military precision. He immediately calls in Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah, and he gives them a very swift, specific four-step procedure to follow immediately. Step 1. Take the servants and put Solomon on the king's own personal mule. Step 2. Escort him safely down to the spring at Gihon. Step 3. Have Zadok and Nathan officially anoint him king over Israel. And Step 4. Blow the trumpet and shout, "Long live King Solomon." David knows that this highly public, official ceremony will leave absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind about who the true rightful successor is. Let's see exactly how this exciting ceremony plays out in verses 36 through 40. Benaiah enthusiastically agrees with the king's orders, declaring Amen. So the special guards, known as the Kerethites and Pelethites, escort Solomon out. Zadok the priest takes the sacred horn of oil from the tent and officially, formally anoints Solomon right there at the Gihon spring. Then they sound the trumpet. And the text tells us something amazing. All the people went up after him, playing flutes and rejoicing so greatly and with such intense excitement that the very ground literally shook with the sound. It was an absolute earthquake of public support.
Section 5. Adonijah at the altar.
Meanwhile, you have to imagine things over in the rival camp are about to fall apart, and very quickly. In verses 41 to 43, Adonijah and his guests are just comfortably finishing up their feast. Suddenly, they hear this massive, echoing noise from the city. Joab, the seasoned military commander, hears the very specific sound of the royal trumpet and immediately asks, "What's the meaning of all the noise in the city?" He knows something is up. And right as he says this, Jonathan, who is the son of Abiathar the priest, comes running up. Adonijah assumes a worthy man like him is bringing good news to cap off the celebration, but Jonathan bluntly bursts his bubble and replies, "Not at all." Jonathan then delivers a completely devastating report in verses 44 to 49. He lists out exactly, blow by blow, what just happened. David made Solomon king, Solomon rode the king's actual royal mule, he was legitimately anointed by Zadok and Nathan at Gihon, the entire city is cheering, and most importantly, he tells them that Solomon is already sitting on the royal throne while King David bowed in worship on his bed, praising God for living to see a successor. So upon hearing this undeniable, irrefutable proof of Solomon's kingship, Adonijah's guests realize they have backed the wrong horse. They rise in absolute terror and quickly scatter, totally abandoning Adonijah in a complete panic. In verses 50 and 51, Adonijah suddenly realizes he is alone and in grave immediate danger. In pure fear of Solomon, he runs to the tabernacle and literally takes hold of the horns of the altar. Now, the horns of the altar were traditionally known as a place of sanctuary, a desperate place to cling to when you need to plead for your life and beg for mercy. Word quickly reaches Solomon that Adonijah is currently clinging to the altar, begging for King Solomon to swear today that he will not put his servant to death with the sword.
And this brings us right to the end of the narrative in verses 52 and 53, where we get to see Solomon's very first act as the brand new king. And honestly, he demonstrates incredible restraint and a highly conditional, measured mercy. He replies to the request by saying, "If he shows himself to be a worthy man, not a hair of his head will fall to the ground. But if evil is found in him, he will die." It's a stern warning, but it's fair. So Solomon sends men to bring Adonijah down from the altar. Adonijah walks in and bows down to King Solomon, completely acknowledging his rightful rule. And Solomon simply looks at him and tells him, "Go to your home."
Section 6. Lessons from Chapter 1.
So what are the practical life lessons we can actually distill from this intense historical event? Well, first, we clearly see the danger of unchecked ambition in Adonijah. Because he was never disciplined by his father and acted purely on his own desires and ego, he nearly tore the entire kingdom apart and severely risked his own life. Second, we see the absolute necessity of keeping promises. David's delay and frailty almost caused a total disaster, but the moment he honored his sacred oath to Bathsheba, he instantly restored order. Third, we learn the immense power of acting decisively from Nathan and Bathsheba. When a crisis hits, you can't just sit there. You need a clear plan and you need to act on it without a single moment of hesitation. And finally, we see the true strength of measured mercy in Solomon. A genuinely strong leader doesn't rule purely by sudden vengeance. Setting clear, fair boundaries, like Solomon did with Adonijah, is often a much greater display of true power.
To quickly recap, Chapter 1 shows us a kingdom completely on the brink of a massive succession crisis, fueled by an aging, bedridden king and a very ambitious son. But through a definitive promise and some incredibly decisive action by key loyalists, the crisis is firmly resolved, peacefully paving the way for the historic reign of King Solomon. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.